right, so I thought I would answer a question that was just posted on one of my videos from many moons ago. I think around 5 or 6 years ago. A video I made about being an Enneagram Type 5. And so the comment was asked by Houki86 or Houkai86. It's spelled Houki86. So thank you for your question. He is also an Enneagram Type 5. And the question was, what Enneagrams do I tend to get along with as an Enneagram Type 5? So I'm going to explain, I guess, really quickly what an Enneagram Type 5 is. For me, I stay in my head a lot, and sometimes I'll space out and I'll be thinking about other things. And sometimes I don't even try to do it. Sometimes it happens when I'm stressed, when I'm bored, but it's kind of obvious when I'm doing it. I was looking through some profile pictures, and there's pictures of me with some people, some of them famous, and I'm off looking in another direction, and I have no idea why, and it was probably because I was in my head thinking about something random, and who knows what I was thinking about at the time, but I tend to do that. So Enneagram Type 5s tend to be in their head a lot, and it's a safe place for us. It's more interesting for us. The thing that we battle is getting out of our head, because when you're thinking too much, sometimes that's not a good thing, but thinking a lot, sometimes it is a good thing. And from what I can tell, most Enneagram Type 5s are introverts. I don't see a whole lot that are extroverts. So that's not a common thing. Not unheard of, though. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if someone said, hey, I'm an extrovert and an Enneagram Type 5. So it's possible, but from the way we are, because we're so reclusive and kind of a hermit, it's pretty typical that we're introverted and introverts. So Enneagram Type 5s tend to be introverted for the most part, tend to stay away from society, people, and stay to themselves and think a lot. And you know, some of the things that I like personally as an Enneagram Type 5, I love sci-fi, so that's kind of a stereotype. I love sci-fi. I love astronomy. In fact, I worked at a science museum in a planetarium for a year, and you know, taught people about stars and the planets, and had a star hop and look at constellations, and it was really quite fun. And what I loved about it is smart people tend to gravitate to science museums, and so it was nice to actually have conversations with people that were smart, you know, and it felt more meaningful to me than something shallow and gossipy. So I don't like gossip, and I think that's a typical Enneagram Type 5 thing. I feel like it's a time waster, and that's another thing about Enneagram Type 5s. For me personally, I don't like my time wasted. I don't like my time wasted on a relationship that's going nowhere. I don't like my time wasted in gossip. I don't like my time wasted by a person who thinks I'm retarded and can't understand something that's simple and tries to make it difficult and tries to be condescending and talk down to me like I'm stupid. And so I don't like my time wasted in that way. And I will tend to be very assertive and say, I got it, and can you please proceed? And so I've found that I really got to be careful in that, because of the fact I get so annoyed with people. And sometimes if you're dealing with someone who's toxic in the workplace and narcissistic, you got to be very careful and not piss them off when they are being condescending and treating you like you're stupid. So if you're getting, instructions that, basically a 5-year-old child could understand, and they're talking to you in a condescending way, for an Enneagram Type 5, it really does get under my skin, and I can't stand it. I can't stand it. I also cannot stand being micromanaged, because that's taken away my autonomy, and it's taken away my ability to be by myself and think clearly, to problem solve and work whatever I'm doing. So micromanaging slows me down. It's a time waster. I hate micromanaging. I hate that. I really can't stand it. And unfortunately, toxic people that climb the ladder really quickly tend to be micromanagers. Let's see what else about Enneagram Type 5. Enneagram Type 5, for me, I love nature. I've always been the type to be outdoors and to feel like I'm one with God and, the universe, so to speak, by being outside. And so some of my favorite times were when I was little and catching fireflies at night. My dad would let me sleep on the back of his pickup and just look at the stars. And he loved the outdoors too. When he was a kid, where they were living, they lived out in the country on a farm, and he had his own pony, and they had horses, and so he was always riding horses and ponies, and he loved that stuff. He loved being outside. He loved playing outside and playing in ponds and catching frogs. He was a total, outdoorsy type of person. He loved fishing, and he loved pranking people. He was a typical Enneagram, or not Enneagram, he was a typical ENTP personality type. Like, he would pull some pranks that were pretty funny, but he was also a deep thinker, and I got along best with him. In my family, he and I were the closest, and I got along with him very easily. He was an ENTP, I'm an INTJ. My Jewish mentor does not believe I've always been an INTJ though, or, introvert. She thinks at one time I was probably an extrovert, and by growing up the way I was forced into with the foster care system, she thinks that changed me. And I guess it did, because after college, when I had paid off my loans and everything, and my gran had just died, and my gran, of all things, she died on the exact same day as my dad. My gran was my dad's mom, and so that was really hard for me. That day she had called me and told me, don't be too sweet, Anna, because God will take you home like he did your dad, and your dad was sweet. And I said, no, gran, you're the one that's sweet, and I told her I loved her, and hung up. And then a few hours later she died. And so that's a double death day anniversary for me. It's in the fall, and it's always a hard time of the year for me. But when I went out west to try to have relationship with all my family that were still alive and my older sister, they all said that I changed, that I looked different, that I didn't seem like I was, the surname, the last name that I have. I didn't seem like I was part of the family, and they labeled it. You don't seem like, that last name. You don't seem like, the Anna that we knew when you were a kid. And it really bothered me for the longest time, but when I think about it, I'm like, they're so stupid. I was only in 8th grade. Of course I'm not going to be the same, and of course I'm going to change. I mean, that's so stupid. So, sometimes you have to, when you have family members that aren't accepting and reject you, like mine did. They all rejected me when I moved out there. I mean, some were accepting and loving towards me. My aunt that was a combat vet, she regretted not taking care of me, and that I was raised in that place. She saw the damage. She could tell I was damaged from it. And I could tell she was regretful for not raising me. But I don't hold it against her, because I know she was having problems herself. So, and I still love her. She did the best she could, and she had a daughter that she was trying to raise, which was older than me, but her daughter was kind of a handful. So she had her plate full, so I don't hold any kind of a grudge towards her. I know she did the best she could at the time, and a week being safe at her house was nice when I was a kid. And so that's all I've got to say about that. Like I said, she let me stay there for a week, and she was nice to me, and when I was a kid, and that's better than nothing. So I will I don't hold any ill feelings towards her. But, people say that's, nature versus nurture. And when I was doing my mother's ancestry, I found all these relatives. She was Jewish and English. And so when I was looking through her English line, which is way easier to find leaves and people related than the Jewish line, obviously. But the English line, there were some neat people. I'm related to Ralph Waldo Emerson, and a guy that invented the flushing toilet. So I have inventors, writers, and there was another guy, Fox, what is his name? Fox something. He wrote the Book of Martyrs. So 2 authors. So 2 writers in my family and 1 inventor, and that's in her line. And so that's pretty cool. And I could tell that Ralph Waldo Emerson is most definitely an Enneagram Type 5. He went through some hard times, and when he was out in nature, he would think more, and he would write some of the most interesting things, and was more introspective when he was outside. But I would definitely say Enneagram Type 5s are definitely introspective, and we think a lot. Like I said, we tend to think about everything. I think about everything. Probably sometimes too much. Like I said, the unhealthy part is staying in your head, even if you're around another person. So if there's another person beside you and you're in your head, I'm really trying hard not to be so in my head and try to be there. I'm a good listener, so it's not like I always switch off and go in my head. But there are times that I'm in my head and I'm not aware. There's only a couple times I've done, well, I shouldn't say couple. There's times I've done that, and a person close to me had to say, "Hey, are you listening? You seem like you're somewhere off, and you're not listening." And so, so Enneagram Type 5, in the head too much. Let's see what else. Time is precious to me. I don't like it wasted. I don't like being, wasting my time. So if there's a relationship that I could tell is toxic or going nowhere, I usually end it pretty quickly. Like the ENFJ that I could tell was toxic and inconsistent. He lied a lot. I don't like liars. And so I had no problem ending it with him and not talking to him again. The INFJ guy that I was talking to and in a relationship with, out of nowhere, he sent me this stupid email saying he missed me and saying I was lovely and blah, 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 blah. And just basically I could tell it was a manipulative ploy to try to pull me back. And so I confronted him on it, and of course he scurried off. And and he was Enneagram 8. So getting back to what do I get along with? Now, I did get along with him really well. He INFJ, Enneagram 8. I did get along with him really well. The thing you got to take in perspective, though, is just because someone has a great personality doesn't mean that they're not toxic. And that guy was toxic. He was not healthy. He was not fit to be in a relationship with anybody, and he probably never will be. But he's very emotionally unavailable. And so you've got to look for those signs, and we tend to be very observant. And for me, it's hard as an INTJ because I don't like listening to my gut. I like to look at observable behavior and problem solve and fix it. So I'll give an example with the INFJ. So he was telling me about this girl at his church group that had said she's a fixer and likes to fix people and all this and that, and how the next time he saw her and was in that group, he was going to laugh this laugh and say, "You think you can fix me?" And I could just visualize that in my head. And I told him that was wrong, that he shouldn't do that. It's going to hurt her. It sounds like she's a caring person, and you're going to hurt her by saying that. So he got mad and blew up at me and started yelling at me and left. And so me being an INTJ, I wanted to work it out and fix it and problem solve and say, hey, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings by being so direct, but again, you're not seeing things from an outside perspective. You're not thinking from her perspective of your behavior. You're only thinking about yourself, and your behavior was going to hurt her. So if you go through with that, you're going to hurt her. And again, he got really mad and stopped talking to me. So I was like, fuck it, So again, just because they have a great personality and seem great does not mean they're great. You've got to look at their behavior. Are they toxic? And that guy was toxic. And so I blocked him on everything, email, phone, everything. So that guy can't crawl back into my life again because he's not healthy. And I don't need someone who's not healthy in my life because I don't like my time wasted. I don't like being dragged down. I don't like being dragged down to depression. And that's what people do. When they're hurting, they want you down at their level. If they see you're happy, they will pull you down. So you've got to really take that in perspective. And with us being Enneagram Type 5s, we are prone to getting stressed out, overwhelmed, depressed. The world is huge to us. And for me, especially growing up in foster care, when I aged out into nothing and had no supports and was trying to make myself put myself through college, I had a really bad social worker. She, instead of signing off, because I was ward of the state, and you're ward until you're legally aged out with their age, that they deem you to be aged out with Texas. And so I had to get her to sign off as a legal guardian representing the state of Texas to allow me to fill out this college application and go to college. Well, instead of signing off, she threw it in the garbage. And I was waiting and waiting and waiting for the acceptance letter from this college because I pretty much thought I was a shoo-in, and I never got it. And I had to go before this small committee, for a small scholarship, and they said, well, you seem like a good candidate, and we know that we're sorry for you for being an orphan, but we need that acceptance letter. We cannot give you a scholarship without an acceptance letter, therefore we're going to have to give it to this other person that's the second runner-up. And that crushed my heart. I was just like, what the fuck, why did I sit through this meeting just to be told I'm rejected, and that was a really hard year for me already. So long story short, I found out she threw the application away. I asked the college to send another one, and as soon as I got in the mail, I filled it out all over again. I marched up to the admin building and I said, you need to sign this right now. And she's like, yeah, I'll sign it later. And she put it in her pile of papers that she didn't give a shit about, and I grabbed it. I said, you sign this thing right now. You cost me a scholarship. I am not going to age out and be homeless at 18. You are going to fucking sign this right now. Of course I didn't say the fuck word, but sorry. I get emotional when I think about it and visualize myself having to do that and fight and advocate for myself as a kid. It was constant and it was hard, and it gives me emotions that I don't like to have. I wish I wish I could talk without feeling, but especially that. But so I made her sign it, and I took it straight to the post office and sent it off. Got accepted, but without a scholarship, without any kind of financial assistance. And of course, nobody told me that I could have qualified for certain, extra help with being a state kid. So I took out loans and I worked my ass off, paid them off. And so that's another thing. Enneagram Type 5s, we tend to minimize when we're overwhelmed, and so we will minimize a lot of stuff. For me, I will minimize going out and being social because people already overwhelm me, and so I will minimize that. I will minimize my looks. Like, look, I don't have makeup on. I don't care. I've minimized things that people value, like Oh, let's see. Like superficial stuff that people are into. I don't see a need for it, so I won't deal with it. I won't buy it. I don't care what the trend is. I don't care to be noticed and popular or stand out. So I don't have the need. Maybe I can look at my thing. I had some notes because I wanted to make this organized for Hookie86 or Hookai86, whatever his name is. Materialism. That's the word. I don't know why I couldn't think of that word. But yeah, so materialism isn't important to us. And so, like, I have a nice couch, in my opinion, but is it fancy? No. I like it because it's got the blue, it's a blue in color, so I like the color. I like that it's the fibro whatever, so you can wipe off stains, so it's functional. And it's got 2 recliners on the ends, but it fits in my apartment, so it's functional. I don't care that it's not fancy. I don't care that my apartment doesn't look fancy. I don't care that people might judge my 2 bookcases full of horror stuff and Batman stuff. I don't care. That's stuff that I'm into, that I like, but I'm not a typical female, as per se. So I do have a lot of clothes. I do have some purses. I do get my hair done. Well, it doesn't look like it's done right now, but I do get it done. So I am still a female. I am still a girl, but when it comes to most things that women are into, I'm not into that. I don't care about materialism, and I don't care about the shallow stuff that women do. So when it comes to dating, if there's a guy and he sends me a picture of his stupid vehicle or something that looks like, like a vacation, or a picture of his house, that immediately turns me off, because I can tell it's going to be a superficial, shallow, not stimulating intellectually type of relationship. So that's not something I'm into. I don't like all that. And I hate the pictures of the flexing with the shirt off. That, to me, another, shallow, not smart person to engage in a meaningful conversation. And so, yeah. So let's see. So yeah, we tend to be loners. And so I think I've done a well enough explanation about Enneagram Type 5. And I do think it is nature versus nurture. I do think that I've always been an Enneagram Type 5. I just think that experience has probably really hammered it out, made certain that I'm not anything different. And so, not to say that you can't change. We are a changing, species, and like I said, you have gravity pushing you down, so whether you like it or not, you're changing, you're evolving, and you're on planet Earth that rotates around the sun. We're always going to be changing. There's always change around us. But for me, I'm consistently an Enneagram Type 5, and I can see it way back. I can see times when I was little that I've always been an Enneagram Type 5. I don't feel like it came out of nowhere. I feel like it was always there. And I will say this, my home life, even before going to foster care, was a little chaotic. My little brother is autistic, and he is unfortunately, on the low functioning side, and he really can't talk. And so I had to learn sign language so I could communicate with him. And he used to scream a lot as a kid, and have a lot of the typical behaviors of an autism person. And so having that in the family, I love my brother, but having that in the family, and then an older brother that's 10 years older that had a lot of issues. I was kind of the youngest but middle child, so my little brother and I are like Irish twins. We're like just a year apart, but um, it still felt like I was a middle child. And so, the typical middle child thing with you don't get a lot of attention and you're kind of neglected. And so I've seen that as a hallmark with introverts and intuitive type of people, even extroverted intuitive type of people. I've seen patterns with all of us where we were unfortunately neglected as kids. And so even ENFPs, ENFJs, ENTPs, I've seen patterns where they're neglected. But I think for INFJ, INTJs especially, we've been neglected like even more so. And so, and certain particular thing I found in common with me and male INTJs that I'm friends with, I'm not going to say it, but we all three have this in common. Now there's one INTJ, I don't know him that well, and I don't know what his life was like growing up. He sent me a DM and wanted me to talk to him and open up, and I didn't feel comfortable because he's married, so I ignored him. But I am curious on how he grew up, because he seemed to have an all-American life. I mean, he was really super cute as a kid, and I remember seeing him around high school, and he was a baseball player and fit and good-looking guy. And so it really actually surprised me that he was an INTJ. I thought he was going to be an extrovert. And funny enough, his wife kind of looks like me a little bit. So I guess I was his type, and I didn't go for him as fast as he wanted. So he found that gal and married. And then when they were struggling, he was talking to me again. And like I said, I ignored him. I didn't answer his DMs, and I'm still his friend, but I did come around and tell him, hey, I'm not comfortable, you're a married guy, so I'm just not gonna, talk to you, except for open, on Facebook, not in the DMs. And I do have some friends that are married that I talk to in the DMs, but like they talk to me like I'm a bro, and so I'm okay with that. And I can tell they're not flirting, and that it's just like a platonic thing. And so I'm not like worried at all about it, and they're like friends for like many years. So, and he is too, but more so I got to know him because of Facebook, not because of high school. I didn't hang out with him in high school. So, it was, interesting that he started, that he was interested in me and remembers me from high school, because I was kind of like just surviving and I just felt like I was like just taking everything that was mandatory and just trying to get through and just going to college. So my more meaningful friendships and stuff happen in college, but yeah, I do think Enneagram Type 5, I've always been like, I've always loved nature. Both of my parents love sci-fi, so that's a have to. I love sci-fi. I love horror. I am a classical musician. I sing. I'm a soprano singer. And typical of Enneagram Type 5, I have extreme performance anxiety. I don't like to sing and perform. I absolutely hate it. And my voice professors in grad school said the only way to get over performance anxiety is to sing every single week. And they were like, you need to go out and perform every single week. Go find some place where you can perform every week. So I think that's where it might be good for me if I do find it extrovert, because extroverts like to go out and do karaoke and stuff like that. And I did date a couple guys that did that. One brought me out and had me go to a fun karaoke at a Korean karaoke bar in Dallas. And that was a lot of fun, actually. And we had a lot of sake or whatever it is that Koreans drink that's very alcoholic. So but it was fun. He got me out and it was fun, so I but yeah, I do have that about me, having a gift, and I'm really good. I'm a really, really good singer. I really am. I just hate performing, and I don't like showing off that I'm a singer. I don't like showing, like at one time when I did perform, I do have some some serious like clubs that follow me, and I wish that I could go and perform again. It would be fun, but I don't feel like I'm good enough deep down. And so even though like my professors, and like they're all on my Facebook, my professors in my music program, as well as the dean over the music program and my advisor, they're all on my Facebook. But and the dean was like trying to convince me to keep going, and he was like, you have what it takes, you can get a scholarship. And I was like, well, not really, and I didn't have confidence. And it's not that I'm not confident that I'm a good singer. I know I can sing really well. It's just I don't like being looked at and stared at. I don't like being the center of attention. I don't like it overwhelms me to get that amount of attention. It really creeps me out. I don't like it when like after you sing somewhere and people are like all up in your face and going, oh my God, when you blah 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 blah, and going on and on about your your performance and stuff. It really it freaked me out. I couldn't handle it. And even when my peers would sit on the front row in our I forgot what it's called, master class. We'd have master class every week where we'd have to perform in front of our peers and the professor, and our peers would judge us, and then we'd have juries every semester at the end of the semester for our grade, and they would pull up any song they wanted that you sang all semester, and they would say, sing this, and you would have to sing it from memory. And so when I'd have like my peers sitting on the front row, and telling me, oh my God, when you did this, blah blah, it freaked me out. I didn't like the attention. I don't like the attention. And so if someone else likes the attention, that's great. I don't like attention. And I don't like being stared at. And it's weird because my earliest memory when I'd become a Christian at the age of 7 because of my dad, he had taken me to this big mega church in Detroit, Michigan. And I remember, having a microphone and being in front of the church and about to sing one of the songs that I was taught to sing. And before I sang, I saw my dad in the front area, and I said, hey, hi, Daddy. And the whole audience started laughing. And he started laughing, and then he was like, went like that motion for me to go ahead and sing. And so I was okay with that, and I loved singing as a kid. And he was musical, he played the drums, and he sang and had a beautiful voice. He had a very beautiful voice. My mom sang, she was a soprano also, and her family had some professional singers in it and dancers. But so you can see that her side was artsy, my dad's side was also artsy but more musical. And so the musical side, hardcore, was from his side more than my mom's side. But they both sang. And so I think it's just maybe the profound loss of them is why I stopped singing. I don't know. I did have to, like I said, I used to perform as an adult, and I just got freaked out by people. I just can't, I can't handle the attention. And so it just, especially when I went by myself. And so I don't know if it'd be different if I went with somebody that was supportive, like a friend or a boyfriend. Maybe it would be different. But there was only one boyfriend that actually got to hear me sing, and I would practice, and that was my long 7-year relationship with that guy. And the Enneagram Type, he was a ENFP, and I think Enneagram Type 8 probably. And he was needy of attention, and so he would always interrupt me practicing and didn't want me to practice, so I couldn't do anything musical around him. And he was a musician, and he was competitive, and he didn't want me to get better than him, especially on guitar. So I would have to not see him when I needed to pass my classes. And so I'd minimize time with him because of the fact he was sabotaging my education and not allowing me to study and not allowing me to practice. So he was the definition of toxic. But anyway, so you can get along with somebody and they can have a great personality. You really got to make sure that they're mentally healthy and not toxic. So I'll talk more about that in part 2 because this is already 35 minutes. All right, thanks.